Hello, Algebra. We are looking at Skills Practice 8.6, Factoring Quadratic Trinomials. And we are going to actually spend 2 lessons on this, this assignment. We are going to work 1 through 12 with this first lesson. And then the next lesson, we'll look at 13 through 24. What 1 through 12 have in common is the leading coefficient is 1. So t squared plus 8t plus 12, the leading coefficient is 1 t squared. In number 2, 1n squared plus 7n. Before we get started on this, though, we need to go over a few things. Up to this point, you have been given 2 binomials that you have used FOIL to multiply it out and ended up with something like x squared plus 3x minus 4. That is called expanding when you go from this form to this form. It's called factoring when you're starting here and come back to here. So we are looking at the factoring side. This is called a quadratic expression. And here is a quadratic equation written in standard form. And this is the quadratic expression. The quadratic equation has it equal to 0. And the quadratic equation takes the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, and c can be anything except a cannot be 0. But other than that, they can be anything. When we are factoring a quadratic expression, when we're factoring something like this, the first thing we're going to look at is when the leading coefficient is 1. And that's what we're concentrating on today. This is one of those skills that it just takes a lot of practice. So we'll look at several practices together, problems together to practice. We'll look at some of the ones on our skills practice worksheet, and then you will practice some on your own. Okay, when the leading coefficient is 1, again, you've got ax squared plus bx plus c. When a is 1, we're going to look at the factors of c. That is the key to figuring out how to factor a quadratic. Look at the factors of c. So whatever c is, what are the factors of c? If you have a plus c, so if this is a positive at the end of your quadratic, then both factors are either negative or positive. Because like if c is 12, 2 factors of 12 are 1 and 12. Well, if c is positive 12, you could have positive 1 times positive 12 is positive 12, or you could have negative 1 times negative 12 is positive 12. So when c is positive, both of the factors can be negative or positive. If c is negative, then one of the factors is negative and the other factor is positive. Basically, what we are going to do is look at the factors of c and then manipulate those factors to get b. And b is this coefficient that goes with that middle term. So we look at the factors of c, manipulate them to get b. And let's look at a few together. All right. So we've got, number 1, these are just practice problems that I have, that I wrote down. A squared plus 10a plus 24. Okay, so we're going to look at the factors of c. C is 24 and manipulate them to make b. B is 10. All right, so what are the factors of 24? Well, we've got 1 and 24. We've got 2 and 12. We've got 3 and 8. We've got 4 and 6. So those are the factors of 24. Now, it is positive, so both factors are positive or both are negative. But if I look at b, b is a plus a positive, so I know that both factors have to be positive. Okay, so are these factors that I can combine them to get 10? Well, 1 and 24, that's not 10. 2 and 12 is not, 3 and 8, but 4 and 6. If I take a positive 4 and I add 6, positive 4, positive 6, if I put them together, I get a positive 10. All right, so once I've unlocked this, then it is simple. You've really unlocked the key. Okay, so our leading coefficient is 1. It's a squared. So we know that the first term in our binomials have to be a. Once I know what these two are, then that's what the others are. That's what the other factors are. So a, and we can check it. A times a is a squared. 6 times a is 6a. 4 times a is 4a, positive 4a, and then 4 times 6 is 24. So a times a is a squared. 4 times a is a positive 4a. A times positive 6 is a positive 6a plus 24. And when you combine like terms, you put these together, you've got a squared plus 10a plus 24. Okay, so again, we looked at the factors of C and manipulate them to make B. All right, let's look at number 2. We've got h squared plus 12h plus 27. So I need the factors of 27. And 27 is 1 and 27, 3 and 9, and I believe that's it. Okay, now it is a plus 27, so either these are both positive or both negative. Because B is positive, I know it has to be both positive. So what can I combine to make 12? Well, the factors 3 and 9, and they're both positive. So plus 3 plus 9 would make the plus 12. So I know that my binomials need to have a plus 3 and a plus 9. So again, because our first term is h squared, that's going to be h times h. Then we got the plus 3 and the plus 9. And multiplying it out, h times h is h squared. Plus 3 times h is plus 3h. Outer h times positive 9 is plus 9h. And then 3 times 9 plus 27. And if you were to combine these, that's going to make 12h. So we are good. All right, let's look at number 3. Number 3 is different from the other two. Do you see what the difference is? That's right, we've got this negative, and we'll deal with that in a minute. But what we need to do is figure out the factors of 63. So the factors of 63 are 1 and 63. 2 is not a factor, but 3 and 21. 4 is not, 5 is not, 6 is not, 7 and 9, and I believe that's it. Okay, because this is a minus 63, one of these has to be negative. And because this is negative, I know my bigger one has to be negative. Okay, so I could have, what could it, I could do? I could be 1 and negative 63. 3, I'm making my bigger one negative. I know the bigger one has to be negative because when I combine them, I get B is negative. All right, and then 7 and negative 9. Now when I combine them, I need to get negative 2. Well, 1 and negative 63 is not going to cut it. 3 and negative 21, if I combine them, I get negative 18. 7 and negative 9, there it is, because 7 and plus negative 9 is negative 2. That is your B. So I know that my factors have to be a positive 7 and a negative 9. G squared is my first term, so my binomials, I need to have G and G, and then I've got plus 7 and minus 9. And if you were to multiply these out, you would get this. All right, let's look at number 4. Okay, C is 60. I need the factors of 60. 60 has a lot of factors, and I'm looking for a 4. So I'm going to kind of keep that in mind as I'm going through. All right, 1 and 60. Combining those anyway, I'm not going to get a 4. 2 and 30. Nope. 3 and 20. If I combine those in any way, no, it's nowhere near 4. 4 and 15. Well, no. 5 and 12. We're getting closer. Let's see. If 5 and 12, if I combine them, we're close, but not quite there yet. 6 and 10. Okay, I know 6 and 10. If one of them is negative, I can get 4. And one of them has to be negative because this is negative. So one of these factors is negative. Now, since this is positive, that means my bigger factor has to be positive. That means my smaller factor has to be negative. Okay, so we said this was close. Smaller factor is negative plus 10. So 10 minus 6 is positive 4, or negative 6 plus 10 is positive 4. All right, there it is. So if I were to factor these, my first term is y squared, so it's going to be y times y. And I've got a minus 6 and a plus 10. And if you were to multiply these out, you would get this. All right, let's look at number 5. N squared minus 3n minus 28. All right, I've got this negative 28. I know that one of my factors has to be negative. It's either going to be the bigger one or the smaller one. Because this is negative, I need more negatives, so my bigger factor will be negative. So let's think of the factors of 28. 1 and 28, we said the bigger factor has to be negative. If I combine those, I will not get 3. All right, 2 and 14, bigger one must be negative because I've got more negatives. If I combine those, nope, I'm not going to get negative 3. 4 and 7, bigger one negative. 4 and negative 7, there it is. If I put 4 and negative 7 together, I will get negative 3. So these are my factors. All right, we're going to make our binomials. The first term needs to be n because it's n times n is n squared. I got a positive 4 and a negative 7. So n plus 4 and minus 7 is your factored form of that quadratic. All right, I wanted to look at number 6 because number 6 is not in standard form. Remember at the beginning, I said standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. That is standard form of a quadratic. And if you look here, r squared is at the end. So I'm going to rewrite this in standard form. R squared is our first term, plus 18r plus 32. 32 is positive, so it's a plus 32. All right, now I've got it in standard form. I need the factors of C to make B. It's a positive, so I know both of my factors will be either positive or negative, but because B is positive, I know the factors have to be positive. So when I combine the two factors, it needs to make 18. All right, so what are the factors of 32? We've got 1 and 32. If I put those together, will I get 18? No. 2 times 16 is 32. If I put these together, will I get 18? Yes, so I'm going to stop right there. I know that my first term is r squared, so it's going to be r times r. I know they're both positive, so it's plus 2 plus 16. All right, that was a crash course, crash practice on this. So let's look at our assignment. And we'll just do a couple of these because I think you need, it just is one of those things that takes practice. So let's look at number 9. Number 9. Let's see if I can, I'm looking for a particular type. There may not, oh yeah. And let's look at number 11. I want to look at that one too. That'll work. That'll work. All right, let's look at number 9. Number 9, I need the factors of 6. Now B is, there's no number there. So B is 1, but it is negative. B is -1. And this is negative, so I need one of my factors to be -1 to be positive. And because B is negative, I need my bigger one to be negative. So what are the factors of 6 that give me -1? Well, 1 and 6, we said one of them needs to be negative, and because B is negative, it needs to be the bigger one. If I put 1 plus -6, do I get -1? No, I get -5. So that's not going to work. I got 2 and 3. Bigger one is negative. 2 and -3. Negative or positive 2, if I put these together plus -3, you would get -1. There is your target. So my first term is W squared. So it's going to be W times W. And then my two factors are a positive 2 and a -3. All right. I really wanted to look at 11 because we did not have one of these in the practice that we did. And why I wanted to look at that is because we have a positive 56 as C, but we have a negative number as B. Now remember, I said that to get a positive C, you either need to have 2 positive factors or 2 negative factors. Now, because B is negative, we know that it has to be 2 negative factors. It has to be. All right, so they both have to be negative. So when I multiply them together, I get positive. But they both have to be negative, so when I combine them, I get a negative B. All right, so let's look at the factors of 56. We've got 1 and 56. We said they both need to be negative. -1 plus -56 is -57. That's not -15, so that's not right. -2, -28. -2 plus -28 is -32. That is not it. 3, 4. -4, 4 goes in it, I think it's 14. -14. Yeah, that's right. Okay, -4, -14. When I put them together, I get -18. I'm closer, but nope, that's not going to work. All right, 5 is not a factor. 6, nope, 7. 7 and 8. -7, -8. -7 times -8 is positive 56. -7 plus -8 is -15. So this is our target there. All right, so let's write our binomials. The first term is t squared, so it's going to be t times t. And then we've got a -7 and a -8. All right. Class, I want you to try the remaining ones on your own. Those are 10 problems. I just want to warn you about number 12. It is not in standard form, so you're going to need to write this in standard form. The rest of them, this is one of those things that it just takes practice to get better at this. And the more practice you do, the faster you'll start seeing these patterns and being able to factor them. All right, class, you have a great day. If you need help, you know where to find me. Bye.